All right, here we go. Happy Friday to NBA Nation. CP the franchise here. We are just a couple of days away from the tip-off of the 2025-26 campaign. And on today's show, it is prediction day. We're going to go through the East, go through the West, the top storylines, and come out with some predictions on each side of the house. And joining me today is our guy, Brian Gelsiler, man, NBA analyst extraordinaire. You can catch him on SiriusXM NBA Radio on NBA Weekend with former Coach of the Year, Sam Mitchell, every Saturday from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Brian, welcome back, man. Good to have you back on, man.
Thank you, CP. Love being here with you.
Yes.
Always a lot of fun, my man.
Absolutely. And as we were just talking about, man, I mean, the time just flies by so quickly.
It does.
And here we are, just a couple of days away from the start of the season. Let's jump right into it. You and Sam were at Cavs training camp just yesterday.
Correct.
What do you think about the reigning Eastern Conference regular season champions, Kenny Atkinson, Coach of the Year? What were your key takeaways from Cavs camp?
The vibe is awesome there, like really awesome. Like the mix, CP, of working hard, having urgency, but being confident and enjoying the work. So think about all those four things together. First of all, like you can't fake the funk sometimes. These guys really like each other. Like and Darius Garland at some point when we were interviewing Sam and I said, he goes, Donovan and I butt heads all the time. He's like, but we're like brothers. We make up a half hour later. He's like, it's not always going to be perfect, but there's a love among these guys. They have an admiration for one another, and there's something to be said for some continuity, for keeping a team together, not shuffling the deck on every bad thing that happens. One of the things with the Cavaliers that was the common theme is they feel as though they beat the Pacers in that series if Darius Garland is a healthy player. And Darius Garland addressed some of this, both on air and off air with Sam and I, about some of the heat he took for the toe injury. And I think people like Darius Garland's toe injury was the same one that Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals has. Okay? Joe Burrow's out for like the season. With that, Garland shot it up and played. But it's not like you shoot up a calf or you shoot up a hamstring. Okay? You have to plant on that toe. And if you can't feel the toe and it's numb, it rolls up underneath you. You can't move. So they look at that last year and feel as though those outcomes would have been much different with a healthier version of Garland. Now, the scary part for them is they open the season, Garland's still not 100%.
Right.
Max Strus is not starting the season. I don't think DeAndre Hunter's going to start the season. So they're without some very key pieces to start here. So how they recover and what they do there, I think is going to be interesting. But I think also, and no one came out and said this, but the impression that Sam and I both got, especially from Kenny Atkinson, was that they're playing the long game here. The idea is to stretch this thing to be healthy for the playoffs. 64 wins is not another requirement for them. They obviously do want the 1 seed, but they're going to prioritize, doing the best they can to make sure that their core four, and they refer to it there as their core four, Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, and Allen, that their core four are all healthy and ready for the playoffs.
Well, I think a couple of things that was quite remarkable with their season last year, which led to Kenny Atkinson winning the Coach of the Year, was he seemed to want to lengthen the bench, limit minutes for his guys. They still ripped off 17 straight here, 16 straight there in the second half. So they still make their way to 64 wins as he's kind of pacing them. But then it all falls apart at the wrong time in the playoffs, where Garland has to toe. DeAndre Hunter was battling some injuries. Spider's always hobbling here and there. So it's just very interesting how things kind of crash for them at the wrong time, despite a great regular season.
No, Kenny addressed that with us too, and what he said was interesting is he'd do it the same way again. He doesn't think that was the wrong plan. He felt as though stretching their minutes was a good thing. The other thing that he really harped on was Donovan Mitchell's level of unselfishness. That Donovan Mitchell was extremely willing at this stage of his career to play less minutes, to take less shots, to score less points, and to make sure everybody else gets to eat. The one thing Atkins said, which is interesting, he's like, I had to remind Donovan at times, go be you. Like, you can just, there's times I'm going to want you to forget everybody else and go get a bucket because that's what you're best at. So that was a conversation. The other thing that was interesting is, Sam brought up the smallishness of the backcourt with Garland and Mitchell. And Kenny Atkinson said, listen, when people call Donovan Mitchell small, they're not thinking of it the right way. He's not small at all. And when we took a look at him, he's bulked up, but not in a bad way. Like, he looks a little bit like Derrick Henry of the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
Okay, he's like, I mean, he's only 6'3", Donovan, but he's got a barrel chest and physical as physical could be. So listen, the Cavs, they look really good. The vibe is right. They see an opportunity. They feel very similar to how the Knicks feel right now, which is this is a now or never year for us. We have a unique opportunity. You don't know what happens year over year. And for this group that's been together for 4 years, they like being together. And there's an understanding that if we don't get it done soon, like this year, we may not be together that much longer. But there is a bond among this team that Kenny Atkinson has fostered. And I'm not beating up on J.B. Bickerstaff, who did a great job before that and established defensive identity for that team that Atkinson has continued. And Atkinson was very clear about that, talk about what he's inherited here and leaned into and built off of. With all that said, these shelf lives of having these title contention windows are not forever.
Yeah.
And so I think Cleveland's starting to feel a little bit of that pressure, but in a good way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, second apron team, and
the only one in the league.
Only one in the league, and that window is closing. And it's very interesting how the storylines changed last year as the season progressed, because it was Cleveland at the top of the East. They were the elite team. The Knicks could not beat them. They beat the Knicks in, I believe, 3 out of the 4 contests that they played. And then they get eliminated by the Pacers, and it's the Knicks that move on. Yes, they lose to the Pacers in the ECF, but they take over the offseason cycle, and now the new cycle, and now, as you said, a lot of the hype is on the Knicks. Are the Cavs feeling disrespected here? How are they feeling as it relates to the standing against the Knicks?
It was interesting. We asked that question, Sam and I, to a couple different people we interviewed. We asked it to Kenny Atkinson. He had a big smile on his face. He said, we're under the radar, which is exactly where we like it. And so he said, we have no problem with that. Talk about the Knicks as much as you want. We're just going to win basketball games. Jared Allen had a different perspective, where he just said, listen, that's New York. He said, we're Cleveland, they're New York. Everybody's going to always talk about New York more, especially when they're good. And he said, we kind of don't care. That's not what we're about. The Cavs are okay right now, for lack of a better term, to just kind of hang back in anonymity. They don't want to talk. They want to play. They want to show their actions. They understand that last year's playoff result was a big disappointment in terms of the level of expectations that they established. But, and I think it's the most important thing with the Cavs, their confidence has not waned at all. If anything, they're more confident, because they kind of looked at what went wrong last year with Mitchell being banged up, Garland being hurt, Hunter being banged up, and saying, you know what? As a healthy team, we're better than everybody. And they think they can go win a championship. They think they can be better than the Thunder. And listen, if everything gets, all cylinders are firing in the right direction, that's entirely possible. But I'll tell you, if, for your Knick fan listeners and viewers here, CP, got to be a little nervous about the Cavs. There's a lot of swagger there.
Well, someone who took that step when you mentioned confidence and taking a step up. Hey, Evan Mobley, man, defensive player of the year, went up a couple of notches in points per game. His 3-point shooting was really good for the Cavs. Some argue that they went away from him a little bit in that Pacers series. What are you expecting from Mobley this year? Because I continue to think that he's the guy that turns things for them in a championship direction.
So this is interesting, because Kenny Atkinson told Sam and I straight out that the next, just in second-team All-NBA, he's been Defensive Player of the Year. The next step for Mobley is to be an MVP candidate. And we turn that, as us in the media tend to do sometimes, we turn that back on Evan when we sat down and interviewed him. And he said, listen, I'd love to be an MVP candidate. He said, but it's all got to work within the framework of us winning a championship. He said, that's where this has to be. He said, yes, can I grow more as a player? He's like, absolutely. Do I want to grow more as a player? Absolutely. He's like, but I want to do it within the framework of this group that we have here. Mobley was very big to say, this is not a me thing. This is an us thing. And frankly, I love the answer.
Very selfless.
Super answer to the question, with the fact that you can make a big deal over my development, but I only want that big deal to be made if it's translating into making this team better. Not worrying about making me better. He's worrying about making the team better. And I think that's huge. He was somewhat matter of fact in saying that, he feels pretty confident he can go back to being the Defensive Player of the Year. He thinks that that's an award that's out there for him this year. And again, I think for Mobley, you just made an excellent point about Mobley. It's less about what Evan does and more about the fact that they got to be careful not to lose him at times.
Yeah.
They forget he's on the floor. Listen, I liken what the Cavs do with Mobley to what the Knicks do with Karl Towns sometimes, where you have a guy that if you run things through him consistently, possession over possession, a lot of good things are going to happen because of how multi-talented he is, both inside and on the perimeter. But what happens is your games get a little guard-centric when you have ball-dominant guards, when you have the Mitchell and Garlands of the world, where you have the Jalen Brunsons of the world, and you lose your big guys a little bit. I think that's the one thing with the Cavs that they have to be very careful about. Forgetting about what Mobley can be, function on what he is and take advantage of that the best way and the most that you can, because I think that's going to be what makes this Cavs offense a lot more efficient and a lot more unstoppable.
As we swing it over to the Knicks, if they are to do this and win the East and get past where Tibbs left his mark, what would it be from Mike Brown that got them to that point?
All right, so I want to start, and I'm going to answer your question in a minute, CP, but I want to start with something because I know you have a big contingent of Knicks viewers and listeners here. I want to explain something because I'm watching media narratives, and it almost feels like not only from the media but from the team, there is this concerted effort in training camp to try to portray Mike Brown as the anti-Tom Thibodeau. All right? And it's driving me freaking crazy, and I'm going to tell you why it's driving me crazy. You can hold the opinion, as I hold, that Tom Thibodeau's firing was unjustified, unwarranted, should have never happened, and if he was coaching this team would be in great shape. You can hold that opinion. At the same time, it can also be true that you like the Mike Brown hire. You think he can do a very good job with this basketball team, and you think they can be wildly successful with him. You can believe both things, because I do believe both things. Listen, I would never have fired Tom. But I think Mike Brown has walked into a situation here where Mike has the potential to do something great with this group. I'm saying it right now. I'm picking the Knicks to go to the finals out of the East.
Let's go.
Because
let's go.
I think this is I like the 5-man unit that they're going to start, whether it ends up being Robinson or Hart. I don't even think it matters that much. But I think they've built some depth here. Listen, if Tom Thibodeau had a guy like Yabusele, I could promise he'd play 20, 25 minutes a game.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, he is a wrecking ball, and he will be fantastic for them. I'm not so high on the Clarkson thing, but I think having a full year of Robinson, and even if the Knicks are gonna play 8 with Yabusele, Robinson, and McBride coming off the bench with how wing heavy you are in the starting lineup, I think that's kind of enough. And so, to me, I love the way the roster looks. The one thing I'll caution against is this. And I don't criticize Tom Thibodeau much because I think he did a largely excellent job getting this team to where he got them last year. If I had one criticism of Tom, it would be sometimes of the underuse of Karl Towns. I mentioned it earlier when we were discussing Evan Mobley. I think that a lot more offense needs to run through Towns. This whole thing you're hearing from the Knicks about having to play faster does not address that. You're not getting Towns the ball more playing faster. So I do think some of that, they will play faster at certain points in time. And I do think some of that, especially with the story being released last week by Shams Charania of ESPN, that Giannis prefers the Knicks. That shines a spotlight on Mikal Bridges because of the draft capital they gave up for him.
Yes, it does.
So when you talk about playing fast highlights one guy above everybody else in that starting 5, and that's Mikal Bridges, who would push the ball up the floor, guy very good at filling lanes, finishes nicely in transition. So all those things kind of highlight Bridges. I think a lot of this playing fast stuff is going to be short-lived. And I do think you'll see a little bit more of a diversified half-court offense. Keep one thing in mind about the Knicks and their weaknesses, CP. We have an old adage in the NBA. You can hide one in the playoffs. You can't hide two.
Can't hide two.
And some of the Knicks' best moments in last year's playoffs, I want you to keep in mind, both in the Boston series and the Indiana series, were with one of Brunson and Towns on the bench. Okay? Because they needed more defense. And so when you start to play fast, that is great offensively. but it compromises your defense a little bit. It makes transition defense having to be more important. Your margins for error are less there. And again, putting Brunson and Towns in a lot of pick and rolls together is going to yield some results for these other teams. So I'm going to be very interested to see how Brown handles the pace thing and how he kind of juggles Robinson and Towns and how much he takes the ball out of Brunson's hands, which I do think needs to happen a little bit. A, to preserve Jalen as much as possible, because I do think he wears down at times. Yeah. B, this is going to be a crazy thing to say. I'd actually like to see the Knicks use Brunson a little more like the Warriors use Curry. Run him off some more screens.
Yeah, people have said that. Sure.
I like that a lot, and it's not unprecedented, because that's a lot of how Dallas used him when he played with Luka. So you'd like to see a little bit more of that as well. But I do think Mike Brown is going to make some of those changes in how the offense runs. I just don't think the playing fast thing is going to be a long-term solution.
Yeah, they may not have the personnel to do it, right?
Correct.
There's one thing you could look at the Kings and say, oh, man, they really upped it. But, yeah, they had a dynamo at the point guard spot.
Fast guard in the league, De'Aaron Fox, right?
Exactly. So maybe it'll be at a pace that matches what these guys are capable of doing. But, you mentioned a lot of things that I agree with wholeheartedly, in that when you have to hide two of your best players on the defensive side, maybe it's an uptick in offense that takes them over the top, because the reality is maybe they can't crack the top 5 or the top 8 in defense in the league. And so if they're in that 10 to 14 range, which can be acceptable if you can get timely stops, then on the other side, you got to make sure that your offense, when, regular season, at times it was okay, but especially in the postseason, you've got to make sure that you can put those numbers up, diversify your offense, and let the threes fly. And when you mentioned Towns, their best three-point shooter, they were 27th in the league in attempts. They've got to up that number. They definitely have to up that number, and it goes through him.
Well, there's too many good three-point shooters on this team to not take more threes. And so I think that has to happen. But, I think we have to be very careful. In this day and age, I think you get a lot of people leaning into quantity threes versus quality threes. And my point being is that I don't need the contested ones off the dribble.
Right.
The ball's got to move. And that's a little bit of a concern here with the Knicks. And I know it's heresy with Knicks fans to be even slightly critical of Jalen Brunson for everything he delivers and everything he brings in, and the role he's played in transforming this team and this franchise, which has been unbelievable. So I say all that with the utmost respect for the player and the person that Jalen Brunson is. He's got to move the ball out of his hands a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because one of the things, if I'm Mike Brown, that my whole thing with Brunson, with the understanding that Brunson lost a head coach who would let him do whatever he wanted to when it came to the ball, and the lead assistant, Brunson's dad, who's been moved down the bench. And so he doesn't have the input that he once did. If I'm Mike Brown and his associate head coach, Chris Jen, who, by the way, is an excellent associate head coach and is going to add a ton to this team, especially offensively, my thing with Jalen will be, you want more space to operate, where you have to do a little less to get your looks, get it out of your hands faster and more often. And I mean, that has to be something, because Anunoby's an excellent three-point shooter. Towns is an excellent three-point shooter. I think Bridges can be a better shooter than he was last year for them, and Bridges is certainly very good out of the corners. So there's a lot of guys that can shoot the basketball on this team. Jalen not holding it the period of time that he holds it, I think is going to work much better for this group. But listen, we also talked about this in the lens of the Cavs too. They got a core they love that is together. The consistency and the continuity of bringing the same core back, I think there's a lot of value in that, especially when you see how the Knicks played last year, what they did. I think these are guys that'll learn how to play a little bit better together. And you said it earlier, it's going to be more of an equal opportunity offense, and I think that's absolutely necessary for the Knicks.
Well, the playmaking responsibility is one, to me, that's going to be one of their biggest keys, one of their biggest things to watch. I thought they were exposed, especially in the playoffs, for not having that. To me, it puts more responsibility on a guy like Mikal Bridges, Karl Anthony Towns. Like, those guys are going to have to, shuffle or shoulder, rather, some of that playmaking burden, take that off of Brunson's hands. And also with the Brogdon retirement, with that second unit, I'm concerned, like, who's going to be the guy? As you said, Brown wants those drive and spray threes, drive and kicks. Clarkson's going to drive. He can get you those paint touches, but he's putting the ball up. McBride is an off-ball scorer. So to me, like a guy like a Hart might have to take on some of that playmaking for the second unit, or maybe it's something where, the wings and the guards are more aggressive defensively, getting more takeaways to get them easier buckets in transition. They're going to have to figure out those ways to generate those easier buckets.
No doubt. And Clarkson, when it comes to the Knicks, Clarkson scares the crap out of me. And okay, he does because we're talking about all the ball movement issues. This dude's the antithesis of ball movement.
Yeah,
he gets it. It's going up.
Mm-hmm.
Like and the thing about Clarkson, and this is why the Brogdon thing, if it worked out, and he didn't look good.
He
wasn't healthy, and it wasn't going to be. And the writing was on the wall.
Yeah.
So, but when you look at the thing with Clarkson, is the luxury you want to have with a player like Jordan Clarkson is that if he's hot, great, give him the ball and keep him on the floor. If he's missing, we don't need to play him.
No.
And it was always that Jamal Crawford thing. He was that kind of player. But Clarkson's not as good as Jamal Crawford.
Yeah.
So, but that's the thing with Clarkson. You're gonna need, you'll know in the first 2 to 3 minutes he's on the floor, are we playing him 22 minutes tonight or are we playing him 6? Like that's kind of where it is with him, because if he doesn't heat up fast, he is going to hurt you more than he helps. Because the other thing is this. He's bad defensively, CP. I wouldn't let him guard my spot online at the bank. Okay, this guy, can't guard a crosswalk, this guy.
Sure.
So that's the other problem that you're going to have. And to be fair, Deuce McBride does defend. And he does guard people, and he'll guard up a little bit. He's not the best defender in the world, but you can never fault Deuce for not competing on the
He's a competitor.
floor.
Yeah.
He competes every single possession, even at times when he's overmatched. He competes. So, listen, again, if you have 8 coming into this season, in terms of the other guys that you've looked at, I think there's something there with Huck Porty. I really do.
Yeah, me too.
I don't think there's much there with Tyler Kolek, but I again like Huck Porty a lot. I know they like Shamet a lot, and part of Brogdon, retiring is the ability to keep Shamet. I don't know that they're going to be able to keep Garrison Matthews. I would certainly like to see them do that. Mm-hmm. And Pacome Daddier can shoot the ball. And I don't know if he's going to be able to do anything defensively or off the dribble, but he can shoot the ball. So let's see kind of if they can piece together a 9th guy in this rotation from that group and see how all that plays out. Because I do think for Mike Brown here, especially early on, he's going to want to have 9 that he trusts and feels comfortable to play. And I think with Brogdon retiring right now, he's only got 8.
I put the Knicks and the Cavs in that upper tier, and then the best of the rest. When you look at Atlanta, their improvements, to me, one of the best off seasons this past off season. Orlando, they go all in on the Bane trade. Boston expected to take a gap year with Tatum out, but still going to compete under Missoula. And Pacers same way without Halliburton. You have the Bucks. Who do you like in that pack of the rest there?
Oh, you left one out.
Detroit.
Who I like the most. That's the
Detroit.
one.
Detroit.
Now, even with Ivy starting the season hurt here.
Yeah.
I love Detroit. First of all, I think Asar Thompson did not play a whole season. He had an issue with a blood clot and sat out a ton of the season last year. I think Asar Thompson, I may pick him for Defensive Player of the Year. Keep in mind, the single biggest reason outside of Cade Cunningham that Detroit stretched the Knicks to 6 in the first round was because of how Asar Thompson guarded Brunson. Mm-hmm. He was fantastic on him.
Yeah.
So Detroit is my favorite of that group just because I think, listen, I don't love what they did in the offseason.
Me neither.
And, Beasley's not, was not going to be there either way, but said goodbye to Schroeder and Hardaway. Duncan Robinson, to me, is a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money for him. Karis LeVert he'll be okay offensively when he decides he wants to pass the ball, and defensively he's not really very good. But I'm also counting on Cunningham being a little bit better. Durham being a lot better. Mm-hmm. Thompson being there the whole time. Tobias Harris had a very good year under the radar for them last year. It's a good team. I like Detroit a lot. Mm-hmm. I'm high on Milwaukee, and a lot of people aren't. I'm high on Milwaukee. I don't think you're going to get a Giannis trade this season.
No.
This is the type of team, CP, that Doc excels with. I will hold to this. Doc's best coaching job in his career was the 18-19 Clippers, where his 2 best players were Danilo Gallinari and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Okay, they were an 8 seed in a very tough West and took the vaunted Warriors to 6 games in the first round. Doc squeezed every ounce of production. Montrezl Harrell, Patrick Beverley. It was just a mishmash of guys, and Doc got them playing right. This team outside of Giannis looks a little like a team like that. Gary Trent was great in the playoffs. Kevin Porter played very well in the playoffs. I'm a huge Cole Anthony guy. They love A.J. Green, just signed him to an extension. Portis is an intangible guy that brings a lot, and I think can help them a ton. Turner's a much better fit for this group than Brook Lopez ever was going to be. It's an interesting team. Am I counting on a Kuzma bounce back? No.
Yeah, right,
but if somehow he does, that certainly helps and enhances this. I like Milwaukee a lot. I'm not as high on Orlando as others. That over-under number of 50.5 I thought was absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
And a couple of things with Orlando. First of all, Franz Wagner's going to shoot 29% from three. The ball can't be in his hands that much. And people go crazy for him because he is additive, and there's a good passer and a ball handler and guards and rebounds. He does a lot of different things out there. But the bottom line is you're paying this dude in excess of $35 million a year, and if he's going to shoot 29% from three, he's no number two option.
It's tough.
He isn't.
Right.
And Bane's, listen, Bane can shoot the ball, and they need somebody that can shoot the ball. Is he going to be everything that they need? And if I told you Orlando had a 45-win season and ended up in a 4-seed or a 5-seed in the East, which I think that was an underachievement, I wouldn't.
No.
But that's kind of where they're going to be. I like that team in that area. And then the other team that everybody's really high on, I'm just not as high on, is the Atlanta Hawks. You're right. They had a great offseason. They bring in Porzingis. They bring in Alexander Walker. Alexander Walker is additive and will help. You put him and Daniels in the backcourt together at times. You'll be very tough defensively.
Yeah.
But here's my thing with the Hawks and why I went under on them, and I'm not gaga for them. How often does Porzingis stay healthy?
That's true. That is true.
And you need that. Like the whole reason everybody's excited about him is because of KP.
That's right.
And the whole playing KP and Jalen Johnson together and KP and Okongwu together. And that's the other thing. Love Jalen Johnson as a player. Can he stay on the floor?
Can he stay healthy?
Because he doesn't stay on the floor either.
It's true.
So so you have all these young guys that you think, Dyson Daniels is very good. I think this is a good group around Trae Young. But if you don't have Porzingis for 60 to 65 games, and you don't have Jalen Johnson for 60 to 65 games, this team's a playing team. So that's going to be the interesting thing for the Atlanta Hawks with me. The Celtics are going to take 63s a game. And some nights are going to look like world beaters, and some nights are going to look like the worst team you ever saw. And they'll probably amount to something in the 500 range. The one thing I'll say is don't sleep on the Pacers.
Yeah.
I spoke to somebody a couple weeks ago in that organization, and I'm picking Andrew Nembhard for most improved player. Told me that Nembhard in this offseason has embraced this I'm going to be the lead ball handler thing, and has been awesome. And so I think that's an interesting thing to watch. Miles Turner was not good in the finals.
No, he was not.
So they like Isaiah Jackson. Wiseman looks better. They think Jay Huff can give him some minutes at that spot. And listen, I hear Obi Toppin's had a great camp and worked hard all offseason and looks better than he's ever looked. You're going to see a lot of playing fast with Siakam and Toppin at 4 and 5 for that team. More minutes for Matherin. It's an interesting group there. Again, do I think they're going to win 45 games? No. Could I see them at 41 and 41 or 43 and 39 in the East? I could.
Yeah, with Detroit, I'm not so sure, man. I think this is going to be a prove-it year for Detroit, especially for Jaden Ivey. The prove-it year in terms of, do they have the capable second star to help Cade really move that thing forward? I'm not sure with Ivey. He's already a little bit of a setback with the knee procedure on the left knee, right? And last year was the right knee. So that's a little bit concerning. I think this is going to be a prove-it year to Detroit to see, okay, does Trajan Langdon need to go out there and make a trade? Do they need to, take a low-risk move on a Zion or something? I'm not so sure, but I wasn't impressed with Robinson, LeVert, because last year, that's a point. I mean, Malik Beasley had a ridiculous year last year. Yes, Schroeder coming in off the scrap heap, like those guys really.
And Hardaway was awesome.
And Hardaway. With Tobias, like they really relied on their vets to have a magical season for them, but I don't see that same quality there with this team. So certainly could be wrong. With the Magic, I'm with you. Like I like the Bane acquisition. It certainly fills some of their need, but Paolo and Franz have not proven to be great 3-point shooters. The shot selection can be a little bit dicey. Like one thing's for sure, with Mosley and Orlando, their defensive floor is going to be ridiculous. They're going to bruise you into submission to try to win a lot of games. I just don't know if their offense, which was 16th in the league last year, are they ready to take that next step to really be, like you said, northwards of 50 some odd wins?
Right.
I'm not so sure. On the flip side, you could say, hey, they dealt with all the injuries to Paolo and Franz last year. And still,
Suggs.
And Suggs.
And that's part of what makes me nervous about
Big.
them. He is a vital player
Exactly.
to what they do on both ends of the floor, but especially defensively. And without Suggs, it's a very, very different group.
Yeah.
And Suggs is another one. Young guy, not proven to be able to stay healthy in this league. So some of this stuff is, well, if with health, I think you kind of have to look at certain situations, like Philly, for example. How do you buy into Philly? If guys are always hurt, at some point in time when you are making predictions and looking at what teams are going to do this season, it's not unfair to assume that guys that are always hurt are going to be hurt.
Yeah, that's true. And that's what you're saying with the Hawks, because I see them as my sleeper team if they stay healthy. And Porzingis is a big part of that. Jalen Johnson, who, when healthy, I love his game, a double-double machine.
Fantastic. All-star player.
And they have the wing depth. When I look at teams like the Knicks or even like the Cavs, that can give you fits with Johnson, Ricochet, Dyson Daniels. Ricochet having a good year.
Absolutely.
Alexander
Walker
is
a good addition there. Yep.
Right? And then they add some firepower with Kennard and those guys. You have Okongwu. So I think the Hawks are in an interesting position, not only because they're well coached under Quinn Snyder and they're in a position to compete now, but also, hey, maybe they trade Trae Young, right? They're not expected to sign him to a contract extension. They got the number 1 pick from the Pelicans for next year, thanks Joe Dumars, for some wacky reason. So they're in an interesting spot, Atlanta. That's my sleeper team. Not necessarily to win the East, but to be up there, in that 3 to 5 range.
Right. And listen, I think that you make a credible case for Atlanta. I think you do. But the Trae Young thing is very interesting to watch.
Yeah, for sure.
Because and you could see a scenario where Young starts out playing great. They've put a lot around them, and it's and they put guys around him that complement him. So Young's in the best situation he's been in his career. But you could see a scenario where Young comes out like a house of fire, playing great basketball, and the Hawks are suffering injuries, and they're just kind of not winning, hovering at 500, a little below.
Yeah.
And Young starts clamoring for a contract extension. And they're kind of scratching their head going, well, this is great that he's playing this way. But if we're not going to have success with him playing this way, are we really going to turn around and throw in excess of $50 million at him?
Right.
And that's the other overhang with them, is what happens with Trae Young. And then if you do decide to trade him, keep one thing in mind. Trae Young is only on this team, CP, because when they went to shop him and DeJounte Murray, Murray's the one that drew interest out there, not Trae Young.
Yeah.
No one wanted him. So what happens here? It's almost a blessing for the Hawks if he does play well and they decide to move him, because maybe there becomes a market for him. There's not a huge market for him. And if you look around the league, outside of a team like Toronto or a team like Sacramento, who wants him? Who's going to really want to do that? I don't think anybody's going to.
Yeah. It's very interesting, man. Shifting over to the West, you have the champion Thunder. I mean, what is it that derails this Thunder team from repeating? The first repeat in 7-8 seasons, man. What do you think?
It can be a regular season juggernaut. And I want you to keep in mind, they won 68 games last year. Chet Holmgren's their third most important player and their most important big man, and he missed 2/3 of the season.
Played 32 games.
Okay. 2/3 of the season.
30-some games, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Okay. So my point being is that they have the depth, they have the horses to get through the regular season without a problem. Playoff time is interesting because their margins in the playoffs were not large. They were thin. Okay. A Denver team that fired their coach with 3 days left in the season, okay, took him to 7 games in the second round. And pretty much in that game 7 where the Thunder blew him out, Jokic just wore down, got exhausted in front of our eyes. That's it. Look at what the Nuggets have addressed this year in the offseason. I'll get back to the Thunder in a minute, but look what the Nuggets have addressed in the offseason. Cam Johnson's a better fit than Michael Porter.
Sure.
They lack three-point shooting. Hardaway's there. They missed some scrap off the bench. They brought Bruce Brown back. Their minutes without Jokic were abominable. Were disgusting. Crazy. Okay? Jonas Valanciunas is there now. And now David Adelman's experimenting with playing them both together. So all of a sudden the guys that they were worried about that weren't good enough, the Strothers and the Watsons of the world, are their 9th and 10th guys. So I love what they've done, and I think that's what's scary for the Thunder. The Thunder will be great again in the regular season, but there's teams now, you're not sneaking up on anybody anymore, and teams have gone out to create rosters to match up with them. The Nuggets have done it. The Rockets have done it. The Timberwolves, frankly, have a roster that I think matches up well and just didn't play well.
They didn't play well. Yeah, I was surprised by that.
But they have. So I think for the Thunder, it's, you teams kind of putting a target on their back and making roster moves that were designed to match up better with them is something you're going to have to keep an eye on. And I don't think it rears its ugly head in the regular season. I think come playoff time, that's where that can start to be a problem because, again, sneaking up on no one, and those three teams I mentioned, Denver, Minnesota, Houston, have all prepped themselves to give the Thunder a much better run. And again, when you look at a Game 7 against Denver in the second round and a Game 7 in the NBA Finals, the Thunder they're not infallible.
Yeah, no question about it. I love Denver's offseason. I think that's going to get them back on track, and I think they could legitimately challenge the Thunder here for Western Conference supremacy. Do you think the Rockets survive without Van Fleet, man? I see a heavily loaded front court with a barren backcourt, no playmaking, and a lot of they've got to invest in like the Reed Shepherds of the world. I mean, how do you see the Rockets surviving here without Van Fleet?
I think it's going to be tough. First of all, when you take Reed Shepard 3rd overall and you lose Freddie Van Vliet, you better put him in that job.
That's right.
All right. It's only his second year in the league, but if you thought he was that good to take it number 3 overall and you lose your starting point guard, it's time. We'll see what happens. I'm not a big Reed Shepard guy, and I know he had a huge game last night.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
in the preseason, but that's the preseason. It doesn't carry a lot of weight with me. We'll see what Shepard does, but the Rockets have the offseason that they had. A couple things are going to happen here. They're going to be Reed Shepard's going to be afforded the luxury of a little bit of a runway to prove himself, because with the contracts that they have that they'd be willing to trade, they're going to have to wait till at the very least December 15th. Okay, so whose contracts am I talking about? I'm talking about Finney Smith. I'm talking about Clint Capella. Finney Smith and Clint Capella together right there are $23 million.
Yeah.
And frankly, those are guys who were fringe rotation guys there and somewhat extraneous. But if Eason plays really well and Jayshawn Tate plays really well, and obviously you know what you're going to get out of a Thompson and a Jabari Smith, you don't need those guys as much. You can go invest in a guard. Well, who could that guard be? Keep an eye on C.J. McCollum. In Washington, who could come there. Now, again, maybe a little too much of a score and a little too ball dominant. Freddie was very good at getting the ball out of his hands. But I do think the Rockets are going to have to take a look at doing something to address that guard spot. The other thing is Van Vliet, 2-year, $50 million deal, but the second year is a team option. It's essentially an expiring deal. And at $25 million, that can net your player also. So, and Lord knows the Rockets have draft capital. They have some of the best draft capital in the league to be able to make a deal. So, I dropped the Rockets to 4 just because, again, I have a theory that I am sticking with. Youth is served in this league. And if you are telling me that the success of your season is counting on a 36-year-old player with an injury history to stay healthy the entire year, the odds of that are less than 50%. I like the Rockets a lot. I love the too big look that they're going to lean into, but I just got to see Durant stay healthy, and let's see what they're going to end up doing at this guard spot. If you look, and I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, but if you look at the numbers with who they were with Van Vliet and who they were without him, they were close to a 500 team without him. And they were played 700 basketball with him. He's a very valuable guy to this team. And that's really one of the big stories bearing watching starting the first 2 weeks of the season is how are the Rockets going to look in the absence of Fred VanVleet?
Well, as you say, youth is best served in this league. And this is why I'm pushing both LA teams to the back of the pack. I'm not as high on the Lakers. Look, all the Clippers moves and the CP3s and the Beals and all of that. Look, I love Zubac. Kawhi Leonard is Kawhi Leonard. They have a good team. Don't get me wrong. I just don't see this thing lasting into the playoffs and deep into the playoffs. And the Lakers as well. I feel like, we're talking about this LeBron and the Lucas stuff. So much has to go right for those guys, especially a 40-plus-year-old LeBron James. It's catching up to him, Gills. He can't even start the season now. I don't see it.
I'll say this, CP, about the Lakers. The best thing that can happen to them is that LeBron asks out and figures out his own trade and his own deal to make. That's the best thing that can happen to them. Because, listen, could he play with this sciatica? He probably could. I mean, if we're being frank about it, he could probably start the season. But I do think that LeBron is of the understanding that he's only got so much mileage left. And I don't think he wants to start to burn up that mileage on a team that doesn't have a chance to win it all. And I think he wants to watch what's going on here while he rests to see how good this team is and if he wants to ask out. Now, the asking out thing is interesting because there's only two teams that I think he could really go to in asking out that he would want to go to. One of them, which is way less likely, is the Knicks. Just because I don't think the Knicks want to break up this core five and give up the years they're going to have to give up with LeBron, who's on borrowed time. I wouldn't do it.
No way. No way.
So I don't think. The other one is the Warriors. And the Warriors are interesting in this respect. Jimmy Butler for LeBron works on both sides and just may end up being something that the Warriors look at and say, you know what? This gives us a better chance to go to the end. Jimmy Butler has been great for the Warriors, but having him around your organization always creates an unease because
he always wears out his welcome at some point.
He's a ticking time bomb.
At some point, yeah.
Okay, so what's going to happen if he comes out this year, has a great first half, and goes knocking on Mike Dunleavy's door and say, "Talk to Lake Up, I want another extension."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Hey, wait, hold your horses here, champ. We're not there yet." Well, you're not there yet? Yeah, my hamstrings bother me. General soreness. I'm going to sit tonight. Like this, and let's not act like Jimmy Butler hasn't done this at multiple places before.
Yeah.
Here's my point. The Warriors may turn around and say, you know what? It's good for business having LeBron there. It gives us probably a little bit of a better chance to win playing with Curry, with Draymond. It's a fantastic story, and it's a great way for both of those guys to sail off into the sunset together in Warriors uniforms. It does a lot for this. It's almost the cherry on the sundae of the end of this Warrior legacy if you do something like that. And quite frankly, if I'm the Lakers and I can get Jimmy Butler straight up for LeBron, where do I sign? Because that's a perfect fit with Luka. That's a better fit than LeBron is with Luka. Butler doesn't need the ball in his hands as much. Butler is he's gonna give you some mid-range scoring with Luka. He's gonna give you that defender that LeBron isn't anymore, that you need desperately between Luka and Austin Reeves. That's kind of the point here and how all this shakes out. I don't know that these teams are static now, in terms of what happens. I happen to agree with you in the fact that I have my top four, which are Oklahoma City, Denver, Minnesota, and Houston. I love Minnesota. When I talked earlier about the continuity that the Knicks and the Cavs have, Minnesota's done the same thing. 2 straight conference final appearances, and they kept the same team together with the only meaningful move being letting Alexander Walker go. And they're going to have Terrence Shannon in that rotation, who I actually think is going to be an upgrade.
I like
Terrence Shannon. Love Terrence Shannon. And by the way, you wish the Knicks took him instead of Daddier. Now, again, they had the 20% discount, and they needed the money under the cap that Daddier gave them. And you got to be fair about the financial challenges they were up against with that. But you look at the pick, and Shannon would be playing 20 minutes a game for the Knicks. He's terrific.
Yeah, so he's a dog.
But so I love Minnesota there. But then when I look at the rest, you have to figure old players get hurt. Now, the Clippers have a few good young guys in Zubac, and they love what they've seen out of John Collins. And they're playing the old guy numbers game with the thought that, we're not going to have 3 of Leonard, Harden, Beal, and Paul hurt at the same time. Lopez, if you want to put him in. And I kind of say, are you sure? Because you might. So that's the one problem with them. The LeBron thing with the Lakers is going to be an overhang. If, listen, LeBron's the difference between Lakers being a top 6 team in the West and being a play-in team. Now, again, you trade them for a lot of value. That's a different ballgame. But without them, they're probably a playing team. I know the whole world's gaga over the Warriors because of what they look like with Butler, Curry, and Draymond last year.
They're way too old, man.
Well, dude, 35, 36, 36, and 39.
No way.
Al Horford, this is what you're counting on?
It never works. It never works. It's not going to work.
It's not going to work. So I look at those 3 teams as older teams. Memphis is another one. Okay, they're great when Jaren Jackson are healthy together.
Yeah.
How often are they healthy together?
I think they're done too. I'm sick of the
what's that going to be? The Spurs are interesting.
Yeah,
but again, before we put the big guy in the MVP conversation, can we see him make it a full season? Okay,
every year they want to shoot him up into the stratosphere. And look, he's getting there. He's gradually getting there. Yes. But can we pump the brakes a little bit?
Little bit. Let's see him do it first. Let's see him get out there and do it before we anoint him anything. Yeah. And listen, could they creep their way into the top 6? It's possible, but they can't shoot. This Fox deal, they will live to regret.
The guard rotation is jammed up. They got to figure that out. Good asset allocation, good asset collection, but they've got to divide that up and get another piece in there.
Right, but mismatched pieces. Mismatched. Okay, you got a bunch of guards that can't shoot.
That's right.
And that's the thing. Like, you can't have Castle, Fox, and Harper in the same backcourt. Harper's the best shooter of the three, and he hasn't played an NBA game yet.
Yeah.
Like, so that's where you are. Keldon Johnson, creator off the dribble. Devin Vassell, creator off the dribble.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but none of these guys are knockdown shooters. Like, you don't have any of that. So, listen, I think the Spurs will be better if they're healthy and could creep their way into the top 6 because there's a lot there talent-wise. And you're absolutely right. It's a great collection of assets. But by the same token, what's interesting about them is that trade-wise, like, they have Atlanta picks. That's their big thing. Okay? Well, great. They have Atlanta picks. Atlanta may be pretty good. Those picks don't matter a ton. Houston's got Phoenix picks. Phoenix is going to be bad.
That's right.
So Houston's picks are a whole lot more valuable.
Way better.
So in terms of San Antonio trying to do something, Houston can block them at every front if they want a guy that San Antonio wants. So they're the other team that I kind of look at as somewhat interesting, younger, and certainly has a chance to stay healthier. But it all is going to revolve around, because if that big guy's not in there, Victor Wembanyama is not in there, then you're gonna. That's a lottery team.
That's it. So when it's all said and done, are you taking the Thunder out of the West again? Is it Thunder Knicks NBA Finals, Gills?
Denver Knicks.
Denver Knicks. Finals. I like it.
Denver Knicks. You know what?
I'm
not. I will say, Nikola Jokic won an NBA championship with the Denver Nuggets 2 years ago. This is the best group he's ever had this year. Doesn't mean they're going to win again. This is the best group he's ever had, the most complementary to what he does. And I hate firing a coach with 3 days left in a season.
Crazy.
The way the Nuggets did. But if you were going to do it, the way Josh Kroenke did it was the right way to do it. They came to a point where they said, you know what? We're not blaming Calvin Booth. We're not blaming Michael Malone. We're blaming both of you because you guys aren't playing nice in the sandbox and both acting like children because you're not getting your way with each other. And in the end, it's killing this organization. So them just going in a different direction of getting guys that are willing to collaborate and work together. And I thought the offseason plan that they had was terrific. So I love what I see out of Denver. Listen, I'm a little worried about Aaron Gordon staying healthy because I think it's, that's one spot. If they don't have Aaron Gordon, they're in trouble. Aaron Gordon and Christian Brown are really important guys.
Big time.
Because of how they defend.
Yeah.
And Brown's shooting is vital to this team.
True.
So, like, there's things that they need that have to happen, but that's just like everybody else. Listen, if Julius Randle's not healthy for Minnesota, Minnesota's got a problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If Durant's not healthy for Houston, Houston has a problem. Listen, if Holmgren misses a ton of time again for the Thunder, it's not a regular season issue, but if he's not healthy in the playoffs, it's a major playoff issue. They, as much as that score was lopsided in Game 7 in the NBA Finals, okay, it was all based on a third quarter that Chet Holmgren dominated the game. Mm-hmm. If Chet Holmgren is not healthy, I don't know that the Thunder win that title. Again, everybody's got the margins for error are slim. Not big. It's slim everywhere, and everybody's got that one guy that if he goes down or is down at the wrong time, totally ruins your chances. So I'm going to hang my hat on Nikola Jokic to do what he does, and I'm going to take Denver over the Knicks in an NBA final.
Oh! There it is.
Denver over the Knicks.
You shattered my prediction.
I'm sorry, dude. Why, you were going to say Knicks over Denver?
We were coasting, man. We've been coasting for 48 minutes, man.
I love that. I think the Knicks are going to be great. I think they really are. But in the end, you're going to have to listen. No one can really guard Nikola Jokic. But I think that's a guy that breaks this Knicks team in a 7-game series. I mean, that becomes the hard part where you get in a series with a Denver, and it's going to take the weaknesses that the Knicks have defensively and completely and entirely destroy them. I actually think the Knicks could match up better with the Thunder in a final.
I think they could match up better with Denver.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now what's your theory on that?
I think Towns and Jokic, man. Towns wants to be the equalizer. He showed up the Joker in Game 7 a couple of years ago as a Minnesota Timberwolf. I think they match up better. To me, the Knicks don't match up well with the smaller teams, the smaller lineups, the more versatile wings that the Thunder have. I mean, you can throw Caruso out there. You can throw J-Dub on a Karl Anthony Towns. You might neutralize him that way. You put somebody on Brunson. Like, they have so many defenders that they can throw at you in waves. And they're turnover happy to turn you over. I think their pressure defense could give the Knicks fits. Whereas with Denver, I don't see that. Plus, Denver's three-point shooting is a weakness. And that is a vulnerability that the Knicks had last year in terms of defending the three. The Thunder, the Nuggets, they've got to show me that they're going to be a much better three-point shooting team that the Knicks have to respect. That's why I like the Knicks in certain matchups, like against the Nuggets versus the Thunder.
It's a fair case. Now, it's a fair case in a couple respects. Number one, Towns did guard Jokic very well 2 years ago in that conference, in that semifinal series. Yes, yeah. He guarded him very well. With that said, will we see that again? I don't know.
Who knows?
But he did. That is absolutely factual. The one thing I'll push back on you is Denver has made it a point to shore up the three-point shooting.
Yep.
So last year they had two shooters on that team, which were essentially Jamal Murray and Christian Brown, right? Now they have those two still. Cam Johnson, who's an 39% three-point shooter, an excellent three-point shooter, and the perfect kind of shooter to be around Jokic. So I love that. Hardaway is going to come in. He's going to shoot the ball a lot, and he's a good three-point shooter. And we talked about how Detroit's weaker for not having him. Mm-hmm. Denver's stronger for having him. Bruce Brown's a guy that hit just enough threes to make that work last year. Like, I think that their three-point shooting has been significantly upgraded, which, again, as you make the point, where the Knicks struggle with giving up threes sometimes, that, to me, is something that gives Denver an interesting matchup. I don't mind them against OKC because I actually think that you play the two bigs against OKC and you can hide Towns on Isaiah Hartenstein. And I actually think I would love to see Mitchell Robinson guard Chet Holmgren.
Oh, yeah. That would be a blockbuster, man.
Love to see it. Now, you are correct in saying that rolling guys like Lou Dort and Alex Caruso and Cason Wallace rotating on Jalen Brunson makes life very, very hard on Brunson. But I also feel like in some of those situations, those guys are and listen, Jalen Williams is another one. Mm-hmm. They're strong players, but they're not tall players. And I do think the Knicks have some length issues. It's like that would be a series where for the Knicks to win that series, OG Anunoby would have to be fantastic.
Yes.
Like he would be the guy that, but I do think that's probably, as crazy as this sounds, in an OKC series, OG is their toughest matchup. Because if you're going to, he's too big and strong for Caruso, which means you're going to have to devote one of Jalen Williams or Dort to him. All right? If you're going to do that and run some offense through OG and have Jalen Williams guard him, it takes away what he does on the offensive end. And if you can if they're going to do it with Dort on him, that means Dort's not guarding Brunson. And Dort's the guy I think you want guarding Brunson.
Sure.
Dort or Alex Caruso. So my point being is that OG could play a big factor in a series like that. But again, it's interesting. First of all, and we're probably putting a cart before the horse. Yeah. We got to watch how the Knicks are going to match up with the Cavs.
That's
first and foremost here. You know?
That's it. That's it, man. And that'll be Wednesday, October 22nd. But Gals, man, we'll pencil it here. We'll pin it here. Catch up later on in the season, man. But I'll be tapped in with you and Sam Mitchell every Saturday, NBA weekends on Sirius XM, NBA Radio, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Gals, outstanding work as usual, man. I definitely appreciate the time. We went a little overtime here, so definitely appreciate you, man.
Always my pleasure, CP. Let's do it again soon, pal.
Absolutely. All right. Salute to you guys again, man. Thanks, everybody, for tapping in. Thanks again to our guy, Brian Gelsiler, man. Great conversation. I'm hyped, man. We got Knicks versus Nuggets finals. I'm all here for it. Salute to you guys for tapping in. Bobby Moses, I see you. Mellow Mike, Fabian Aramaris. Salute to Fabian, Will Latimer. Always in here. Shout out to Will Latimer. Shout out to you. Eric L. Beats. Mellow Mike. Great conversation, man. DeMario, salute to you. What do we think, man? Knicks and Nuggets? Sign me up for it. Oh, man. Great show, man. He was under time constraints, so we kind of had to pace the show accordingly. So hope you guys got a lot out of it. We'll be back on Knicks Fan TV side of the house at about 1:30, 2 o'clock. We'll talk more Knicks. I got a special guest coming through there as well. So action-packed, man. 5 days away from the start of, 4 days away from the start of the NBA regular season and 5 days away from the start of the Knicks season, man. So we are hype. Edwin P., I see you. Salute to Edwin P. All right, we'll take a quick break, quick reset, and we'll be back on the Knicks Fan TV side of the house. Remember that the show's available in audio podcast format. No reason to miss it. And salute to the replay gang, man. We out of here.